Okay, I'm under time pressure here, so let's go for it. And a lot of these slides are probably duplicates. Okay, I'm going to describe the nuts and bolts of what we do, positive systemic practice, how it works with teenagers and parents. So we've gone through this, developed over 40 years, originally Mater Dei Counselling Centre, and set up in Clonliffe, and Crosscare is the social care agency of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Dublin. These are our 5 centres located in places where we've been invited into, places with significant disadvantage. The aims of the practice now are to help families resolve adolescent emotional behavioural problems, to maintain adolescents within their families, but more specifically to maintain the relationship, to preserve and enhance the relationship with parents. And Nuala, I was listening to the 5 items that you mentioned of well-being for children, health and economic, and preserving and having a good relationship with your parents is the thing that will predict all of those through life. So it's crucially important. And you can have had a very, very good relationship with your parents up to adolescence, and things can go very badly wrong then, and you're still in trouble, and still you won't achieve those 5 indicators. So it's very important. It's not just the early intervention, early in the life cycle, as in under 12s. It's at this stage as well, and we aim to prevent disruptive out-of-home placements. Okay, 3 phases. Everybody does them: beginning, middle, and end. So what do? We work in pairs and meet with the teenager and parents for a first conjoint session where we discuss confidentiality, the format of the first session, and the following issues are discussed. The first session, we meet with them together, and then we tell them we'll take a break, and then we'll come back when they've had a time to think about whether they want to come back or not. So the first session, for some families, it can last the first 5 minutes. They sit in the chair and we start with our icebreaker and we say, how did you hear about coming today? And they say, oh, we're so glad to be here. We've been waiting for ages for this appointment. And you know, they've rolled up their sleeves. They're ready to start the work. For other families, it can take a while, or it can take a while for the teen is ready to do the work and the parents have to be brought along. So the engagement phase is a very tricky one. Assuming parents come, but only 33% of teens live with both biological parents now, compared to when Fiona and Kathleen started, it was probably 2/3 living with both biological parents and 1/3 not. So we start with often with the teen, and first thing they say is, I don't want to talk about it. Great, the ball's in, the game's in play, we're on. And that's fine. We decide whether that's resistance. They were told they were coming to the dentist and they landed up with us. That doesn't start off well. Or they're overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed with anxiety, with shame, with anger, with fear for their parents, whatever it is. We can often do the first session not describing what it is. We'll turn to the parents. Do you know what it is? Yes. So it is causing you a problem in your life. How is it causing you a problem? Can you not go out? Can you, whatever? And we can often do the first session without knowing what it is. We will get to it when we have separate sessions. I'm going to knock things here. Or else the teenager will say, I've no problem. Look at her. She's mad. She's the one with the problem. She needs to be here. I don't. That's fine. We're still in business. We can work with that. We name the denial of problems or conflicting problems. We name the dilemma of tackling conflicting problems at the same time, reframing conflict, and highlighting and validating different perspectives in the presence of others, which is difficult and tricky when emotions are running high. We look at previous attempts to solve the problem. Maybe you weren't ready then, maybe things are different now, whatever. And then we ask the teenager and the parents general questions about these 4 domains: home, school, friends and self. They're the 4 building blocks of our work. At that stage we take a break. Just for a few minutes, the team go out of the room. It gives the parents and teen a chance to think about whether they'll come back. And we come back, we see if they'll return, we reframe the problem. We can say, thank you for bringing your parents, if we think the parents can withstand that. We will say, well, or sometimes they've just had such terrible adverse life events that reframing isn't the issue. They have really important and difficult things to work with. We devise a goal for the family and we agree a series of parallel sessions. And during those sessions they're told, I will meet with the parents, my colleague Fidelma will meet with the young person. What I talk to the parents about isn't told to Johnny. What Johnny talks to Fidelma about isn't told to parents. But Fidelma and I are constantly talking to each other. Right. So then, families come in with agreed goals like this. So in this case, it's uncomplicated. But it will always involve different intervention aims for dad, intervention aims for mum, and intervention aims for teen. In this case, Mary has become withdrawn, lethargic, not socialising, staying in her room, listening to music, and mum has read her diary where she was questioning the point of living. Mary is miserable and stuck, parents are frightened, and all want Mary back out with her friends. So the intervention aims for dad might be to become more hands-on with Mary, to actually teach him how to talk to his 13 and three-quarter-year-old daughter. She's changed hugely in appearances, but not that much inside. And dads need to really be taught how to talk to daughters and not to defer to mum all the time. For mum to help her, for instance, not be so fearful that what happened to her own younger sister 15 years ago when she was attacked will happen to Mary. For Mary to help her regain her sense of optimism, maybe to use CBT on her fears, to develop social strategies to link back with her friends. So the next one is differing goals. So this is a family. Johnny, age 15, and mum came to the first session. He lives with mum. His biological father never lived with him and ceased contact 8 years ago. And his stepfather of 7 years has recently left the home. There's a great deal of conflict between Johnny and his mother, and it's recently escalated to physical contact. Often Johnny will not get up and go out to school, so mum's goals identified in the first session were for Johnny to go to school more often and be less abusive to her. The language out of the bed in the morning is shocking. Johnny's goals were for mum to stop nagging, get off my case. So then the intervention aims. The intervention aims for mother were to help her understand Johnny's anger and acknowledge that he needs nurturing. As well as limit setting, he needs nurturing, despite his adult size and rejecting attitude towards her. Teaching mum to ignore the verbals for the moment. Just for the moment, ignore the verbals. Normal communication will resume eventually. To help her understand how Johnny's life experiences have contributed to his anti-authority attitude, and to work out strategies she can use to help him develop a more constructive view of authority. I'm often struck by the link between where teenagers have difficulties in school with authority and difficult parenting experiences, attachment and parenting experiences, particularly to dads. And to help mum set limits in an assertive, consistent and non-provocative way. This can be a key one where mums are parenting alone. So the intervention aims in this case for Johnny could be to help Johnny acknowledge and process the anger and sadness arising from the lack of contact he's had with his biological father, and maybe to explore if it's appropriate to initiate that contact. To help Johnny acknowledge and process the anger and sadness arising from his stepdad recently leaving the home and the way this has compounded the impact of the absence of his biological father from his life for the past 8 years. And to help Johnny use anger management techniques to manage himself in difficult situations. The intervention aims for dad, even though dad isn't present, we would hypothesize about this and think about making contact. All of these aims are what we will do in the middle phase, where the heavy lifting is done. So the middle phase, parallel sessions, team members meet regularly, crucial. You have to be working in the same place at the same time and be in and out of each other's offices. You're really working the case and then adjust the pace or direction of the middle phase. We have telephone contacts with schools, other agencies involved. For instance, with everybody's permission, we ring school, say Mum and little Johnny, and we will actually say to maybe the guidance counsellor or the year head in school, if there's discipline issues for the next 6 weeks, send them here. Phone us with them, and we'll talk to Johnny about them. Leave the Mum-Johnny relationship time to heal and for us to work on it. We'll put it in a different shape, with different words on it, talking to schools, but that will be the thrust of what we do. In selected cases, consultation with a psychiatrist is arranged for risk assessment and advice. And when the teen and parent are judged to be ready to engage in a conjoint session, we convene one of those. So the middle phase with teenagers, this is where the heavy lifting is done, where we do all that work. The aims sound lovely, but so some of the things that come up in the individual work. Family secrets. I've known since I was 9 that my dad wasn't my dad. So that's what the teen tells us. The parent will be saying the same thing in their session, but actually the family secret, that's not the family secret. The family secret is that John's lived for the past 6 years knowing that his dad wasn't his dad, or Mary's lived knowing that her dad wasn't her dad. He's the dad of the younger ones, but so those kind of things. Adolescents can consider what would be reasonable behaviour without losing face with their parents. So Mary, who's 13, comes in and she wants to be out till midnight. So in a separate session, I can say to Mary, well, who in your group is out till midnight? Well, there's only one and her parents are alcoholic, they don't care. Duh. But Mary would never say that in front of parents because parents want her in at 7 and she's fighting for her life. I mean, you know, when you're 13 and a half and in first year or second year, your life with your friends is oxygen. You can't survive without it. So, but once we were working with both sides, we can work on these issues. Adolescents can safely critique their parents' relationship, led by a counsellor who's informed and empathic to the parents' baggage. So I will have heard from my colleague where parents are at, what's going on. And for instance, a teenager can hear in the individual session maybe from us that, well, actually, did you know that your mum was the first one to come across her sister after she'd been beaten up? No, I didn't know that. So that bit of, and we'll encourage them and teach them to talk to each other about that. And then the teenager can quite spontaneously come up with, well, maybe if I texted mum, things like that. Teenagers can safely explore feelings about an absent parent, their divided loyalty about that. Their feelings about their sexuality, whatever they want. We've explained the limits of confidentiality clearly at the beginning. It's in the letter they get, it's at the first conjoined session, and it's at the first individual session as well. So the middle stage with parents. Why do we engage parents separately? It's not just to get the goods on their teenagers, but to work in depth with parents on the factors influencing their parenting, such as their particular fears, their family of origin experiences, family secrets. And it sometimes takes the form of helping parents go back to their parents and maybe doing some work with their own parents, and that frees them up to take up their authority with their own kids. The quality of the parent-child attachment is really important in how the family will move forward and cope with future events. Our work with parents helps them make the change from parenting a child to parenting a teenager. And it's a very different style of parenting. It goes from consistency and no meaning no to negotiating and bargaining. We help parents work out ways to save face, advising them like threats from mum, right, you're grounded for the whole summer, the beginning of May, is not really going to work. Or from dad, okay, that's it, Christmas is cancelled in this house. We need to move away from that. I'm using the funnies, but sometimes parents, limit setting can be verging on dangerous, and we need to work on that. We help parents stay connected while their teens separate and individuate. And parental attachment to teens is a really important, and I think it's probably an unresearched area. It's more subtle, less overt, but every bit as important as parenting young children. And again, this is where family secrets are disclosed. Often a parent will wait until a teenager is in counselling before they tell them something about their parentage. For instance, your aunt is really your mum, or dad actually lives close by and didn't die before you were born. Or it can be that the parents believe the young person is gay. In my experience, very often they're right, and the teenagers in the other room tying themselves in knots because they think the parents haven't a clue, and the parents are way further down that road. So there are some of the things that come up in the middle phase. The conjoint work is about, we bring them together when we feel they're ready to look at the progress they've made separately and see, to draw out how it's changed, the difference that makes a difference, the small things that make a difference. The fact that Johnny has got up and gone to school most days last week, we then track through all the different knock-on effects that that's made in the house. They can have constructive dialogue, better communication, and good conflict management can be started. And sometimes we can have a conjoint session where we run the show and we have that session, but we know it's very tentative, and we then go back and do more separate sessions. And we agree any necessary changes to the family goals for the work. And then the closing phase, as Alan has described, review the therapeutic process, reflect on lessons learned, engage in relapse prevention. Okay, what's the next battle you're going to have? What's going to be the next difficulty? And disengagement. You can, of course, come back, but we don't think you'll ever need to, and they don't. So positive systemic practice has a particular strength of having parallel adolescent and parent sessions, not just to keep them apart, but to heal the relationship and to develop insight for both sides while we work separately. There's 10 principles developed. The manual is for sale out in the foyer. And there are 47 stances listed there, which help us. Adolescence is viewed as a normal developmental stage, which it is. So we don't condone the shocking language, but actually it is a stage. And we can help parents get some sense of perspective on what they're right into. Help parents and teenagers understand each other's perspective. Ha, that's so easy. But you can do it if you have them together and separately and together and separately. So there's the manual. It's out for sale. So I'm going to, have I time for? Okay, right. Just a quick whiz through a client's journey through the service, which will give you what it looks like. This is a case of Tracy and Margaret. The family was self-referred. Past client gave mum, Margaret, the phone number for help with Tracy, who was 15. Tracy had lost it with a guard while she was drunk, so there was trouble. Margaret was concerned about Tracy's depressive and suicidal thoughts, self-harming behaviour and school non-attendance. Tracy had been very unhappy in the 2 years leading up to and following her parents' separation. She had self-harmed by cutting herself and had made 2 attempts with paracetamol tablets. There was 5 children. Parents were separated following long-standing alcohol and domestic violence problems, and Dad is sometimes homeless. And there had been intervention from the JLO, but Tracy had resisted that. So I'll go quickly through this. Tracy's a 15-year-old girl who presented with a history of attempted suicide, self-harm, school avoidance, depressed mood, binge drinking, uncontrolled anger at home, in school, with friends and in the community. The precipitating factors were Tracy's parents' separation, the domestic violence, Dad's alcohol, along with her transition into adolescence, and the immediate precipitating factor was with the Garda. The predisposing factors: she may have been vulnerable to developing these difficulties due to growing up in a family where there was frequent conflict and domestic violence, which may have led to an insecure attachment style and negative view of herself. It's also possible she may have shared with her dad a predisposition to low mood and an attempt to cope with this by drinking. So the maintaining factors were her low mood, suicidal, and this is just the cycle, I won't recite them, but that cycle that we really have to break into, or else these teenagers are off into really difficult situations that the Minister talked about this morning. Her binge drinking may have maintained her difficulties by making her disinhibited and further guilt-inducing situations. And we can talk to teenagers about their guilt in a separate session. They won't talk about it in front of their parents, certainly not at the beginning. School avoidance, again, left her feeling hopeless about her possibility of catching up. And the reaction of Tracy's mother, teachers, and everybody had the inadvertent effects of maintaining her view that she was a failure. The protective factors, and there's always protective factors. In this case, there was a strong mother-daughter relationship, the willingness of them both to engage in counselling, and Tracy's willingness to do well in life and make something of herself. So, again, intervention aims for teens to help Tracy change her thinking about herself as a failure. So do some CBT, some motivational interviewing, school attendance, get her out of the scratcher, and then social skills. Right, how are you going to deal with Natasha at school, who slags you because she knows you've cut your arms. To offer Tracy distraction techniques, visualization, self-soothing for times when she's tempted to explode, self-harm or binge drink, to teach her how to spot these signs. And Mum has a big job, because Mum is probably better placed to spot the signs before Tracy can. To explore with Tracy some safe ways to keep connected to Dad. She really wants to keep connected to Dad. Dad lives with his mum sometimes is homeless, and she's really worried. I'm always struck by, in a family of 2 or 3, where a teenager comes to us, they're the one in the family that's the bridge between the 2 parents. Often one parent is estranged from the family, and the other 2 or 3 sibs are quite happy never to have contact with Mum or Dad. But the one that we see is the one who's trying to maintain that contact. To explore her beliefs that she's to blame for parents' separation and Dad's homelessness. Mum has told us that she's thrown these things at Tracy from time to time. What we don't know is what else Tracy's heard, maybe from her dad or from other people, about things. So she may have other beliefs about herself that we need to explore. Obviously a no-harm contract, and explore her anger at Mum for ending the marriage. So intervention aims for Mum to help her let go at her guilt at not separating sooner, to help her apologise to Tracy for saying in anger that she drove her dad to drink. And we often work with parents where their parenting capacity has dropped for a while, just at that cusp of adolescence. Maybe there's a sick child and Mum has been down in Crumlin Children's Hospital for 6 months, and then comes back and tries to regain control, or Dad has left the family and comes back. That has to be worked out in the family. How to reintegrate in a new situation, because 6 months is a big change in a teenager's life. So to help Mum accept that Tracy needs some contact with Dad or his family, we have to do that separately with Mum. She finds that really difficult. She wants to talk to his mother. His mother never gave me a bit of support all those years. But Mum has to let go of that, and we help her do that. To help Margaret recognise signs that Tracy's going to explode or self-harm, and for Mum to ask about it, offer to listen, not try to fix anything, or not withdraw, not go next door for a cup of coffee when she sees Tracy fiddling with her ring or twiddling her hair, or whatever are the signs. And we can send Dad a text offering for him to have contact with teen counselling, or maybe with his mum, whatever. So in a conjoint session, in that case, we discuss how Mum's withdrawing was an attempt to help de-escalate things, not an abandonment. To discuss how Tracy's anger came from confused thinking about her contribution to family problems. It may be the first time that Mum hears what else Tracy thought she was responsible for. To discuss how Tracy visiting paternal grandmother is not a rejection of Mum's sacrifices for the family. Mum can give her blessing to that. To explore how Tracy has positive and negative traits from both parents, and unique ones of herself. And you can do some lovely work with teenagers. What do you want to take from your dad? Well, he actually was a really good musician in his day, and I want to get into the school musical now that I'm back in school. And to help them both see the unrecognised benefits, this is what I've talked about, of not fighting, like being at a recent wedding where they felt proud of each other, or they can both look forward to next year's junior cert results nights, we hope. So this is a case where Mum and daughter were seen and 16 sessions took place. 3 conjoint family sessions, 1 at the beginning, 1 in the middle and the end. 7 individual with Tracy, 4 individual with Mum, and Tracy had 2 consults with the child psychiatrist to assess suicide risk. Tracy's school and father's family of origin were also involved. The case was successful because the intervention helped Tracy develop strategies for coping with negative emotions, helped Tracy re-evaluate her negative view of herself, and Mum helped her do it as well, strengthened the mother-daughter relationship, allowed a father-daughter relationship to be acknowledged and its potential to be there and to grow, and increased Tracy's engagement in her educational programme. It's a successful treatment of a suicidal, self-harming, angry adolescent. And the next slide links with Alan's world of research, where I know it's difficult to see at the bottom of the hall, but the clinical cut-off point that Alan described is there in the box in the middle of that. Before treatment, Tracy and her mum scored above that on those scores, and after treatment, below it. So like many of the other systemic models of practice, it does work with teenagers and parents. So we're anxious to spread the news about this. We're available for services who'd like to get some training in this. You can contact us, and So thank you very much.
I'm going to need the little white plug there.